Hello and welcome to Just One Thing from Swell. This is our monthly session where we teach you one tip, trick, or um, feature to help you make your Swell campaigns even better. In case I haven't met you yet, my name is Jenny Vance and I'm the Director of Client Experience here at Swell. Today we're going to be talking about pre-event communication. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you and we're going to get started in just a sec. Looks like we got a couple more people coming in. Okay, once again, this is Just One Thing from Swell. My name is Jenny, and you probably are pretty familiar with Zoom by now. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on this. I just want to make sure that you know how to ask questions and how to get around in case you need to. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see a menu bar that looks sort of like this. And in the center, you see emojis. You have a chat right next to that. You can ask questions there if you'd like to. There's also a Q&A. You can ask questions either way. If you missed something or you have to step away for a minute and come back, there's a little thing called AI Companion, and you can click that and ask it if you missed something, tell it to summarize the last 5 minutes, whatever you need to do. Finally, if you need to leave for any reason, just click this little icon all the way on the right. Looks kind of like a fire escape sign, and that's how you leave. It won't leave the webinar for everybody, just for you. So with that, let's move into our topic today. So we're talking about communication tactics to elevate pre-event giving. So first, we want to understand what pre-event giving is and why it's important. From the name, you can tell that pre-event giving is giving before the event, right? So that makes sense. But why would you want to do that? Well, there are a couple reasons. One, it's always good to have more money, more funds raised for your programs and for your services, for the things that you do for those you serve. But the other reason, and it's not as obvious, but I'm sorry. So the other reason is that it establishes credibility within your community. And so to understand that, we're going to look at some psychology today and some writing tips. We're going to get into that too. So let me explain what I'm talking about when I say that it builds your credibility. You may have heard of this before, but so there's an American psychologist. His name is Robert Cialdini, and he published a book in 1984 that's pretty famous. It's called Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion. And in that, he talks about 6 pillars of influence or persuasion. These are the things that make people buy. He's talking to marketers, but we can use these principles for fundraising too, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But he talks about 6 principles: scarcity, authority, social proof, liking, reciprocity, and commitment or consistency, that people use, that we use unconsciously to decide whether or not we're going to buy from somebody or we're going to support a cause. So we can use those in fundraising too. And let's look just briefly, because I know that Brooke has been through this a few times, and I also want to get into more about communication further down. But just briefly, here's how that applies to fundraising. So scarcity means that people perceive things that have a limited availability as more valuable. So that's why you'll see, like in Swell, when you have a number of tickets. So if you have 5 tickets left, there'll be a little button next to it that says only 5 left. That's a way of increasing scarcity to let people know that they need to act pretty quickly. So you can also do that with time. The second one is authority. And so authority, people are more likely to agree with or go along with or support causes that experts support. And you are an expert in your cause. So the next one is social proof, and this goes to belongings. As humans, we like to be part of a group. So that's social proof. We like to buy and to support, to buy things, to support things, to attend things that our friends and our peers are attending or supporting. And so that's social proof. The next one is liking. Liking goes to your reputation. So if you are trustworthy and you are likable, people are more likely to support you, to support your cause. And by you, I mean you, your organization, not you individually, although that does help too. And the next one is reciprocity. So we think that people like a free lunch, but they actually don't. So when we give somebody a gift, like a free lunch or a present at Christmas, or you just out of the blue, just a nice thank you, they feel obligated to reciprocate, to give back in some way. And so we encourage reciprocity. There we go, reciprocity in our events to foster that pillar. And then the last one is commitment and consistency. Once somebody commits to something, once they say that they're going to do something, they're more likely to do that thing. And so have you ever noticed that the people who come to your events, come the next year too? Once somebody starts coming to your event, they habitually come. That is from this pillar of commitment and consistency. And so when we're talking about communication, one of the things you can do, and one of the things you could do, is to reach out to those who have come before, who have supported you before and haven't yet done that, and remind them of that commitment and that consistency that they have with you and your organization. So this is a much bigger topic, these principles of influence. We could spend a lot of time there. I do want to get a little bit further in that. And so I'd like to really actually focus on a later book. So in the 2015, 2016, somewhere around that, Cialdini published another book called Persuasion. Now remember, these are principles of influence are for persuasion. His new book is called Persuasion. And basically what it says is that if you want to influence somebody, you want to persuade somebody, we live in an attention deficit world. You have to first get their attention. And in order to do that, you have to introduce them to what you want them to do, what you want them to support before you want them to do it. So before they enter the room in your gala. So that's where we're going to focus today, is on getting them to support you before they're even in the room, getting them primed so that in the room, they're even more supportive of you. And in order to do that, we need to make a slight little mental shift. We need to think of our events as, yes, they're events, but they're also campaigns, and they can be both. They can be an event and a campaign. So what's the difference? With events, our focus is on attention. They're transactional. Our emphasis is on menus or auction items, the entertainment value, who's going to be performing at the event. When we have a campaign, we're not focused on those things. We're focused on why. Who do we serve? Why are we having this event? Why do we need to raise this money? And attendance is not necessary for a campaign. The emphasis is on, like I said, how funds are raised, the programs, the events, the programs that the event benefits, ways to partner with your organization to further your mission. And your event can be both. So in order to do that, we can make some shifts to our content pages, our other site features, our emails, our social messaging, and we can highlight those things to merge events and campaigns. So on your site, these are your campaign pages. I'm talking about like your content pages. And we're going to go in and look at an example because I think that'll help. But these are mainly, I'm talking about your content pages and your buttons, things on your Swell site. All right, so here's an example. It's not a real event. We've looked at this event before. And this is pretty typical of what we might see for a gala or an event. This is for a dance. It's for a community garden, but if I look at this page, I don't see that anywhere on there that it's for a community garden. I would see that it's at the community garden. But what's highlighted is this dance with your partner. What I'm getting as going an attendee attending this event. So the text is focused on the entertainment value. Additional content pages, if there are any, are focused on where to park, other event features, and our buttons are calls to action. So they're asking people to do something, and they are all attendance based. So with a few tweaks, we can change that. And I'm going to open this up. I'm going to stop sharing this Canva presentation, and then I'm going to show you what this looks like on the real site. But with a few tweaks, we can change that. So here's that first site. You see there's our buttons where we have our call to actions are very attendance oriented. Then if we look at the next version of this, so this is the same site. See, it's the same dance. And over here on our buttons, we've changed those to reflect what we're doing. So again, this is for a community garden, well, this pretend event. And our language over here is no longer about what they're getting at the event. Now we still have that language. We put it on a different content page over here. Know before you go, and we're telling them what they get. So there's that information about their ticketing. Here's where to park. There's a map of the entrance area. All the information they need is right there. But on our homepage where they first come, we're gonna use a header, and we're gonna tell them this is important. So that's why we're using a header. Plant a seed for our community garden this Valentine's Day. Okay, that's what we're talking to them about. Then we're going to talk to them about our mission. I'm going to give them a little quote. We know we cannot plant seeds with closed fists. To sow, we must open our hands. So we're priming them there that to open your hands, you're giving. And then we're going to give them a call to action. Will you help? So we're asking them a question. And then we're going to tell them how they can help. Every ticket they purchase provides 2 hours of instruction in our outdoor garden, a patch. So that's what we're calling our tables, host a patch, because it's a garden. So host a patch. By hosting a patch, you provide a no cost gardening plot to an underprivileged family. And again, we've told them what our mission is up here, that our mission is to preserve garden traditions for the next generation and to provide access to fresh produce in urban food deserts. So, and then we tell them here, if you can't join us, because remember with campaigns, attendance is not necessary. So if you can't join us this Valentine's Day, we hope that you'll still help by watering the plants, and that's what we've called Become a Fundraiser. We have Become a Fundraiser enabled on this site, and so we've called that Water the Plants. So you can help us by watering the plants, becoming a fundraiser, and supporting the event that way, or by helping us grow by making a donation. So that's the Give Now button, and we've changed that language as well. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to jump back into our presentation, but before I do that, I just want to check and make sure that there are no questions right now. Okay, good. All right, so then back into our content for today. One sec. All right. All right, so back into our presentation. Here we go. All right, so if we looked that first, just to recap, so we looked at that one event, the first event, focuses on attendance. Then we redid that, so our focus is on the mission and how this event is going to help us accomplish the goals of our mission. There's a clear call to action with ways to help, and then we've customized our buttons to further that. You can do the same thing with your emails and your social channels. So I did promise you that I was going to show you how to find the email editor and the content editor. So we're going to do that real quick. So when you're in the Swell dashboard, and I know I stopped sharing my screen, so let me go back and do that. All right, so when you're in the Swell dashboard, over here on the left-hand side, you can click on Email Editor, and that'll bring up all of those emails for you. And then in the same place, you click on setup and go to content. It looks like it kicks me out. I've had this open a little while, so let me get back into that event. All right. All right, so from this section right here, this is our dashboard. We're going to click setup, and then we can go into content if we wanted to edit those pages, add a new page, or edit any of them. Right, so that's how you get to your content editor that we just talked about, those pages to make the language even stronger there, and then your email editor to make those strong as well. Let me just move this out of the way. All right, so in our emails and social channels, when you open up your email editor in Swell, you've got 18 emails you can customize. So it's a lot of emails. And while you could definitely customize, and we suggest that you do customize any or all of them you want to, for this, I'd like to particularly focus on just these few: your ticket emails, your receipt emails, and your fundraiser success emails, and then your reminder email. So why? Your ticket email, now that goes out to everybody who gets a ticket, whether they have they're a tabled guest or they're an individual guest. And in that, there's a link to a personal fundraising page that they can use to then invite other people or ask for donations to support your cause. So rather than just leaving that language the way that it is, you can highlight how they're sharing, how they can use that to help you support your cause. So you could put in some information about when you share and someone buys a ticket, it supports 2 hours, like we just saw with the garden site we looked at, it supports 2 hours of instruction. Put that same language from your content pages into your emails. And then next, your receipt emails. So everybody who makes a purchase or makes a donation gets a receipt email, whether that's a sponsorship or a donation, any kind of transaction, they're going to get a receipt email. And that record is good. So we always suggest that you customize the bottom of that email to put in your own tax language. But I suggest here that you go a bit further. Again, take that same language about what this event does, how it helps fund your mission, your programs, put that information in the emails. So for example, we talked about gardening, but say this is domestic violence abuse prevention. So add in some language that talks about, for a donation of $50 helps us provide 1 hour of counseling for a domestic abuse victim. Something like that. Whatever it is that pertains to your mission. And then the next one there is the fundraiser success email. So remember I mentioned those personal fundraising page links. When someone shares that link, if I share my link with you and then Sue, she goes and she clicks my link and she makes a purchase or she makes a donation through me, it's going to email me and tell me, hey, your friend Sue made a donation, and it's going to tell me, way to go, because I'm supporting I'm supporting the cause, and it's going to give me her information so that I can reach out and say thank you. You can take that a step further by explaining sorry. So that happens every time somebody donates or makes a purchase. So not just one time, but every time. So take that a step further by, again, putting in that same language that you used in your receipt emails about, or your ticket email about what those funds are doing for you and what they help do. Also, remember to thank this person because they are spreading the word for you. They are helping you. So make sure that you put in some language there to thank them. And then lastly, here I have the reminder emails, and I have ticket emails and reminder emails with the parentheses, because if you have virtual and you have in-person tickets, you would have 2. But for most of us, we're just going to have 1. We're going to be in person or virtual. So up to you. So your reminder email, obviously you use them as a reminder. This is the only email that you have that doesn't go out transactionally. So it doesn't go out automatically. It goes out when you press the button to send it. And it goes out every time you press the button. So I've talked about this a few times where you can send multiple reminders, but you can also use it as a way to update all of your ticketed guests on the progress of your event. So we've already been able to fund X to help blank do blank. And we're not done yet. This is all because of your efforts, and we're so grateful. So you can send that out as many times as you want. Maybe have a sponsor who's doing a matching grant. For every $500 raised, they're going to donate $500. Or they have a certain amount that they'll cap that at, and you can highlight that we're almost at our match. So you could send that out as many times as you wanted to. All right. So in that, so you may have noticed that in that last example, I said you've helped fund X. So that's a version of an elevator pitch. So think about, because of this campaign, or in this case, event, because of this event, we will be able to do whatever it is you'll be able to do, which will enable us to whatever that will allow you to do. And this is important because, so always keep that language in the back of your head to put into these content pages to make them more, and your emails and your social posts to make them more impactful. And then, like I said, you can do the same kind of thing in your social posts. So what kinds of things do you say? So you're out of updates, but you still want to send out something to your Take It a Guess, for example. So you can do this on social, or you could also do this in your emails. Reminisce. So you could tell us the event or your organization's story. So who have you helped this year? What good have you done? What did you do with the funds you raised last year? How did those help you? And how do you hope that they'll help again this year? Profile your champions or your beneficiaries. Create fear of missing out, FOMO, if this is a champion campaign as well. So your event can be a champion campaign if you have tables or fundraisers, ticket holders competing against each other for recognition or other prizes. Celebrate success stories. So celebrate successful days or stories publicly. Do that in emails and do that in your social. Thank your donors and your champions in personal messages. So sometimes we get stuck. And I feel like if we're going to talk about communication today, we have to address AI. So there are a few ways that AI can help us. Every tool that you look at now, it seems it has AI, right? So Google Gemini has Gemini on Google Docs, and then there's one in Microsoft, although I can't remember its name, and there's one in Apple. There's one everywhere. Canva has an AI tool that'll help you create if you need to. And then there are the specialized tools like ChatGPT. So that's the one that we hear about most often. But there are other ones too. So how can they help? If you're in a document and you're stuck, you can just ask whatever that AI tool is, give it some language, and it'll help you flesh out what you're doing. So spark creative thinking. You could do the same thing in ChatGPT to help you get unstuck. You can create customizable templates. So if you're emailing, not through Swell, but through your email provider, if you're emailing past donors who haven't yet made a donation or who haven't registered for the event, you can ask for some help. You can ask AI for some help to customize a template that you can then just copy and paste, so you're not reinventing the wheel every time you do that. You can look at your data from last year and previous years, and you can have it and have AI analyze it. It's really good at analyzing data, and have it analyze that data and then tell a story, tell a complete compelling narrative. There are even some tools like Pictograph, I think is one of them, and it'll take that data that you put in and put it into an infographic form for you. So to tell a compelling story with a picture that you could then share on social or in emails. You can convert content from one form into another. So say you have an email that you really like, but you want to also post some of that same information on LinkedIn or on X or on Meta. So take that, what you have, put it into that tool, into ChatGPT or another tool, and ask it to convert it to a compelling post for you for that platform that you're going for. Or ask it for ideas for Instagram of types of images that you could use to highlight that same story. And then finally, you can ask it to proofread or edit or revise what you've already done to make it sound more like you, to make it more compelling, to make sure there's no little errors or glitches in it. Don't rely on AI to do the work for you, to do all of the work for you, but use it as a tool. So it can make what you're already doing better, but it can't be the human that you are. So always check it. So then some tips for using AI. That brings us into some tips. And there's a picture of a floppy disk here. So I know that kind of dates me. You may not know what that is, but that's how we used to be, how we used to save things on a computer. They had a little drive and it held a 3.5 or a 5 piece of plastic, and that's where our data was. And to really date myself, when I first started college, our computers were very old and they didn't even know they were computers. You had to have one disk that told it was a computer. It was called a boot disk. You put that in, and then you had to put whatever program that you were using, which was like Word Perfect or something like that, to put in to write your papers. So that's when I tell you that to tell you that you need to tell AI context, because it doesn't know. It's a computer. It doesn't know what you want it to be. So you have to tell it who you want it to be, who you want it to act as, and what personality it's taking on. It's very smart, but you need to give it some context in order for it to work well. And try more than one tool. So like I said, there's tools in all of the platforms that you use. So in Google or in Word or whatever you're using, in Canva, there's ChatGPT, there's Claude, and they're all good at different things. So if you're not getting the result that you want, and you've given context and you've given a good prompt, then try another tool and see if you get what you want that way. You also want to train it to sound like you. So give it your website, send it your website, send it some things that you have written, your brand guidelines. If you have those, you can put all of those things in a tool like ChatGPT and tell it that you want to write this social post so that it sounds like this voice. And it'll do that. And then ask it to verify its sources, verify what it gives you. So especially if you're using data that you didn't put in, you want to make sure that it's right. It's not always right. It's not always accurate. So it sometimes makes mistakes. And if you ask lots of questions, it starts what they call hallucinating. It gets a little off track. So make sure that you're using accurate information. You can also ask it to verify its sources, to show its sources, and it'll show you the links where it got information from. And then finally, refine. So correct any mistakes. Say, okay, this is great, but this doesn't look quite right, this part, put it in quotes, and ask it to fix it. And then give it feedback. So tell it, I like this part, but I don't like this part, or I'd like to make this stronger, and tell it what you mean by stronger. So anyway, just a few tips. Again, that's a huge topic and could be a whole, just one thing on its own, how to use AI for fundraising, probably even longer than that. But just a few tips. So to sum, so here's what we talked about today. So we talked about using the principles of influence: scarcity, authority, social proof, liking, reciprocity, commitment, consistency, and also persuasion. So these are the principles of persuasion, but we talked about persuasion and persuasion. And we talked about doing that through effective communication. And the tools that we're using for effective communication, we're telling stories, we're using strong verbs and nouns, and we're keeping our audience in mind, which means we're talking to a specific group of people. We're talking to the people who are our supporters and not people who aren't. So keep them in mind, keep what they want in mind, and write to that. Be clear. So use clear language. Don't use a lot of jargon. That makes it a little hard to understand. Don't use 50-cent words. Just make it smaller. And if you get stuck and you don't know how to make it simpler, ask AI. Rewrite this for me in a simple way that a 9-year-old would understand. And it'll do it. Speak to the platform you're using. So if you're using Instagram, for instance, you don't write the same way there. You don't put the same content on Instagram that you do on LinkedIn. So consider the platform that you're using, or an email, for example. And then finally, answer now what. So back to our garden example, we told them what we want them to do at the end of that homepage. Will you help? Here's how to help. Buy a ticket, water the plants, buy a patch. So these are the ways that you can help. And so you're asking them to do those things. All right, so we always like to end these just when things. I'm going to check on your question in just a second, but we always like to end these with what's next and how to get help. So what's next? Next month, March 19th, Brooke will be talking about in-room activation. So we'll be taking this pre-event giving into the ballroom and some in-room things that you can do to increase your fundraising there. And that is March 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, same time, different month. And then finally, this one always kind of reminds me of Labyrinth. Should you need us, all you have to do is reach out, support@swellfundraising.com. If you're ever stuck, we'll help you. Just email us at support@swellfundraising.com. There's also lots of information in our help desk, which you can access from the left-hand bar menu in your Swell or in the bottom footer. There's a link both places, and there are lots of helpful things there. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go over to questions and see if we have any questions. So it looks like we don't have any questions today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being here with us and for being with Swell. We really enjoy supporting you. We love seeing what you do. And so thank you.